horrific experience that you've just gone through. So very, very important to reach out, particularly if you are having any thoughts of harming yourself. You want to reach out to 988, call that suicide prevention hotline. You can text as well. And also, your community has so many resources available for you. Communities are gathering additional clinicians as we speak so that there'll be help and resources to address these harrowing experiences that no one should ever experience. But when they do, professional help is the key.
Absolutely. Listen, I think you gave some really great tips there. And of course, we appreciate you coming on to our air here with us and sharing those tips during this very hard time. That's Dr. Christine Caulfield, CEO of LSF Health Systems. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And we just continue to highlight all of the different stories that we have been seeing play out this week between Texas, North Carolina, back through the Mid-Atlantic for today, where we have active rain that's going to be moving into the region. We could see more flooding, so keep it here to Fox Weather as we continue to dive into each and every one of these forecasts and walk you through what's expected in the upcoming days. Now, this is about does it for this hour of Fox Weather Now, but don't forget that you can download the Fox Weather app to stay up to date with the latest forecasts. We'll have more Fox Weather right after this break. now on Fox Weather, deadly walls of water have pummeled communities across 3 states in just 1 week, and it's spawning unprecedented devastation. Dramatic video from New Mexico shows a home being swept down. A flash flood warning that was issued yesterday. 3 people, including 2 children, are dead after that water rushed in. And today, we are tracking more rain in the forecast. In the mid-Atlantic, millions are bracing for days of drenching rain. Tropical storm Chantal.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Good afternoon to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is 4 o'clock and that means it's time for today's Top 4 at 4, where we break down 4 of the big stories that we're tracking in the Fox 35 newsroom today. And joining us for today's Top 4 at 4 is Fox 35 news anchor and reporter Marlisa Goldsmith. And Marlisa, good to see you.
Yeah, happy to be here with you, Garrett.
So let's start with this, our story number 1 today, and that's hearing from a Brevard County man who's been cleared after spending 2 decades behind bars.
Yeah, so this is a big story here. Jeffrey Abramowski, he actually spoke after his murder conviction was overturned. He's 63 years old and was locked up for 24 years. You're taking a look here at video of him about 2 months ago when we were there as he was released from prison. That's his family that he was walking out with. But he was convicted of murdering 78-year-old Courtney Crandall. The 2 were friends, actually. And Abramowski claimed innocence this entire time. Again, this is a view of him walking out of the prison with his children. And a judge overturned his murder conviction and ruled that new DNA of people who were also at the murder scene cast enough doubt to have another judge and jury take a look at the case. And then he is expected to get a new trial, Garrett.
Well, the state attorney came out this week and said they're not going to pursue those charges against him, that the case has been dropped. They're not going to pursue it. And so, he spoke earlier today with his attorney and said that, feels like that he's exonerated at this point, and was asked about how he is kind of handling all this because of the back and forth and the questions of what was going to happen over these past few months. And so he talked a little bit. He was also asked about, does he feel bitter about all that time spent behind bars? And here's what he said about that.
There's going to be, a lot of pent-up frustration and stress and all that, and it leads to, bitterness and anger towards the people that have done this. But you have to understand with this, though, there was a different administration. The administration that's in there now actually took the time to do the right thing and investigate, and that's why we're standing here today. So, and also my attorney, Kevin McCann, said, let it go. He says, because you're not truly a free man if you're out there with all that pent up in your heart. So I'm learning to, just do the right thing and just move on. I got a great family and I love them, and I'm not going to let this consume me.
He also talked about how it kind of hit him. Said he was just like taking a shower the other day and realized, like, now that he has kind of cleared that this case has been dropped, that the element of choice again in his life. And he's like, sometimes it's things that you don't always think about or realize, that you just, spending time in prison, in jail, you don't have that element of choice. Yeah. And so he was like, it's just kind of been weird in some different ways that he didn't necessarily expect. Now, we should note that there is a law in Florida that allows for compensation for people who were wrongfully incarcerated. So his attorney said today that they are going to seek compensation through that, whatever avenue that may take, if they end up filing a civil suit. But he said they will be seeking compensation in some form for his time, 20 years just about behind bars there.
Yeah, and I have to say, out of all the years that I've been a journalist, I've reported on several people who have been allegedly wrongfully convicted, and according to them, no amount of money, and no matter how big it is, will ever take away the fact that you were locked up behind bars. You just can't put a price on that.
Yeah, you really can't on that time, especially when you're talking about that long of time.
Yeah.
Story number 2, and that is questions over proposed cuts to NOAA are continuing to kind of come into focus. Really been a big focus this week, I think, but really a focus today of some Democratic lawmakers here in Florida.
Yeah, and the reason why it has become such a big focus, of course, is because of the devastating and catastrophic flooding that has happened in Texas. Today, President Donald Trump's nominee, Neil Jacobs, who is the nominee to head NOAA, promised to fully staff the National Weather Service. And this, of course, comes after those devastating Texas floods that killed many, and there are still a lot of people, more than 100 people missing. But this triggered a new wave of criticism, if you will, about the president's deep cuts across the government. Democrats have been lawmakers have been pressing the Trump administration about the cuts, cutting more than 2,000 staff positions, and then a budget proposal that slashes $2.2 billion in spending. So a lot of questions swirling around that they're looking to make sure that things are in place so that something like what we saw in Texas doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned the confirmation hearing for that NOAA administrator nominee, and obviously a big focus of many of the questions that he was asked. We also heard from some U.S. representatives from the state of Florida here holding a virtual news conference. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Lois Frankel, another one of them, who spoke today and basically voiced their concerns about this. And one of the people who was a part of this virtual news conference was someone who formerly worked at NOAA, and he talked about his concerns about potentially losing the accuracy of some forecasts because of the proposed cuts if they were to go into place. Here's what he said.
The loss of AOML and its cooperative institute would result in a 20 to 40% decrease in hurricane forecast accuracy, which would cost the economy more than $10 billion for a single hurricane season if only 2 major hurricanes were to hit the United States. This cost to the economy is 20 times larger than all of the budget cuts to OAR that are proposed. But even more disturbing would be the probability of increased loss of life if hurricane forecast accuracy decreases.
Now, you mentioned the NOAA administrator nominee who vowed to make sure everyone is fully staffed and that kind of thing. At the same time, he was directly asked if he agrees with Trump's proposed cuts. He said, I agree with the budget, and it was a bit of an interesting exchange between him and one of these Democratic senators who said, well, then how can you say that that the operations are not going to take a hit with these cuts? So still a lot up in the air about this, and kind of hard for these kind of competing sides to see eye to eye on some of it. But it is certainly a big topic of conversation.
Definitely. Yeah.
Story number 3, and today we learned the cause of this 911 outage that impacted several Central Florida counties.
Several, Garrett? We're talking about more than 1 million people who were impacted by this outage. There was a widespread 911 outage that left about 1 million people living across Central Florida unable to place emergency calls for more than 8 hours on Monday. Just imagine the magnitude of this. I'm talking about areas including Marion, Lake, Osceola counties, and the cities of Ocala and Leesburg. So this presented, as you can imagine, a very dangerous situation for people who were in emergencies yesterday. While the ability to call 911 was not an option, people were still able to text the number if there was an emergency. Officials are now blaming the disruption on a fiber optic cable that was allegedly cut in Leesburg. 911 calling has since been restored. I know that I received a text message early this morning saying that it had been restored in Lake County. So this was something that impacted a lot of people. Our phone lines in the newsroom last night were blowing up. We had to make sure people weren't in need of an emergency because they were calling us, but they just wanted to see what exactly was going on. Yeah, so it was very interesting.
A big impact, and it's certainly concerning to hear about. And I know Fox 35's Marie Ettinger today has been looking into, some of the redundancies in place, what backup plans there are. You mentioned the text to 911. Obviously, that's not something that everyone can do.
And we found out a lot of people didn't even know they could do it yesterday.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you are one of those people who don't know that you can text, I want to give you a rundown of what you need to include in that text. So once you go to draft your text message, you want to put 911 in the to field, and then you want to let them know your address of where the emergency is, and then you want to specify if you need police, fire, or ambulance. And Kelsey Cairns was reporting on this story yesterday. She said make sure you try not to use slang or put emojis in there, because that kind of takes away from the message and the urgency that the dispatchers are trying to get to.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very helpful information there. Story number 4, and that was a former Congresswoman announcing her run for Orange County mayor on Fox 35 this morning.
You heard it here first on Fox 35. It was an interview done with Amy Caulfield. So here's the deal. In 2026, the current mayor of Orange County, Jerry Demings, he'll be out because of term limits. So voters are going to be selecting who they want to replace him. And this morning, former Congresswoman, who you see right here, Stephanie Murphy, she announced her intent to kind of get back in the political arena. She announced that she's going to be running for the Orange County mayor position. She talked a lot in that interview about raising her family here, along with the rest of us, how much she wants to make Orange County the most livable, the most safe, the most affordable community there is here in Florida. She talked a little bit about complaints that have been made about Central Florida when it comes to affordability, comes to things like the traffic on I-4 and the housing situation, the housing crisis that a lot of people are finding themselves in. And then in regards to solutions, she addressed things like creating more well-paying jobs for people to be able to afford to just live, let alone housing and affordable housing. She talked about looking at some of the regulations on housing and the availability of it, and then transportation and infrastructure, which of course are all big points when you're looking at political figures.
Yeah, here's what she said. You mentioned talking about affordability. Here's what she said in that interview this morning about that issue.
Well, I think we have to increase the number of housing units that we have, and that takes taking a look at the regulations and making it easier for housing units to be on the market. But you also have to address well-paying jobs. People have to be able to afford their living. Anybody who's working 40 hours a week shouldn't have to scrimp to make ends meet. And I think we have to address both sides of that, the availability of housing, but also well-paying jobs. And that means diversifying our economy. Also, transportation. We are growing so fast, but it can't be so hard to get to soccer practice and to work and to childcare. We have to make the necessary investments into our infrastructure here so that we can continue to be a world-class city.
And Stephanie Murphy, not the only person who has already announced their candidacy for this race, kind of becoming a bit of a crowded field now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we have got Tiffany Moore Russell, the Orange County Clerk of Courts, Myra Uribe, who is a current commissioner right now. I believe there's also a tech entrepreneur, Chris Messina, who has also announced his candidacy as well. So that race really starting to shape up.
Yeah. So I mean, we still got a little bit of time, but not a whole lot. I feel like everything is a blur in the political arena now, with certain races people announcing years ahead of time and others not. So a lot to keep our eyes on.
The lines on that calendar, the political calendar, there really are no lines. It's just a constant thing. Well, Marlisa, we appreciate you joining us for our top 4 at 4
Absolutely,
today.
Garrett.
We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Laurel Blanchard joins me now. And Laurel, we're hearing some rumbles of thunder overhead here in our studios in Lake Mary.
Yeah, starting to hear those rumbles, and those clouds are starting to look pretty dark out there, Garrett. And you can also see that in downtown Orlando as well. A couple of rain shafts far off in the distance, and we can continue to see that and a lot more of it as we take a look at the end of the work week as well. But most of those storms, few of them going to sneak into the Orlando area, but the majority of them are actually far off to the north. And we can see over Lake Fairview right now, a couple people making their way inshore because we can see those clouds are darkening up. Still a little bit of sunshine out there, but unfortunately, it's not going to be too sunny for long. 92 degrees out there on Lake Fairview right now. And as we do take a look, this is a big view of the storm tracker radar. We have storms down by Yeehaw Junction in Melbourne, making our way up the northern I-4 corridor up towards Daytona, and then also seeing a lot of rain towards the Gainesville area. So taking a little bit of a closer look, here's Gainesville, and we can see more of that rain continuing to make its way over Stark, and then soon to be Palatka, St. Augustine, and also seeing a couple of those showers by Palm Coast and Flagler Beach as well, but a lot of lightning, and that's going to be the trend basically through the rest of the work week as we see those storms pop up today, tomorrow, and Friday before things get really toasty, taking a look at the weekend. But overall, still seeing some storms by Daytona, down by DeLand, Deltona, and even now over Lake Mary, starting to see more of those storms starting to rumble up. And we can see more of them really starting to pick up because of the sea breezes, taking a look over Yeehaw Junction. But if you do hear any thunder, try to get inside as quick as possible because overall we are still going to be keeping that widespread rain because of those sea breezes, taking a look at the end of the work week and the start of the weekend. So make sure you have the rain gear out there for sure. And we're also going to be seeing that heat really pick up as well. But for the rest of the work week, especially for your Thursday morning commute, looks good. Going to be seeing those partly to mostly cloudy skies out there. Storms tomorrow going to pick up right after noon, so probably at about 2 o'clock, really seeing those storms pick up. And instead of mainly being off to the north, they're going to be down to the south. So seeing those storms really start to pop up by Melbourne, even more of them really continuing to pick up as we head through the later on in the evening. And it's basically a rinse and repeat forecast from as we take a look Friday and into the weekend as well. So a lot of storms on the way. So again, just make sure you are staying aware of the forecast as we continue to turn up the heat a little bit. Seeing those temperatures throughout the low and mid 90s tomorrow. And Garrett, we're going to be in for a heat wave as well. Check out these heat indices of what we're going to be feeling. Not quite high enough for a heat advisory. National Weather Service of Melbourne classifies that as once heat indices get over 108 degrees, that's when they start putting out those heat advisories. But it's still going to be very toasty out there, feeling like 106 and 105 taking a look at the weekend.
Yeah, plenty hot enough. And I mean, let's be honest, at that point, when you're talking, 105, 106 on the heat index, what's another 2 degrees at that point with that
Seriously.
advisory or not? I mean.
Yeah, hot and humid. That's going to be the trend for the rest of the work week out there for sure.
All right. So certainly something to keep in mind. Got to stay hydrated, do all those things that you do to make sure you can stay safe out there. Now let's talk a little bit about the tropics. Because some interesting things to talk about there.
Yeah, interesting things to talk about. So over the weekend, Chantal fizzled out. However, still posing a flood risk, especially for areas across Maryland and now parts of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So that's something that we're going to be watching. But other than that, no tropical activity for the next 7 days. I do have like a little bit of an asterisk on that because of course it's hurricane season. We're always watching where the next zone could be. And we are starting to see the Climate Prediction Center flag areas across the Gulf, looking at a less than 20% chance of some sort of tropical development as we take a look at next week, so the July 16th through the 22nd. However, still an area to watch. Nonetheless, we are seeing extremely warm ocean water, especially in the Gulf, taking a look at the next 2 weeks. But overall, big news in the tropics already. While Colorado State University issued the first season outlook back on April 3rd, and now they actually updated their forecast today. So what they're calling for now is a little bit less of a chance and a little bit closer to average for our season and the remainder of the season. So mind you, 3 storms have already happened. We had Andrea, Barry, and Chantal. And so now as we're progressing through the season, we're still seeing a very hostile atmospheric conditions in the environment. So with that, where they're taking it down just by 1. It's not a lot. However, it does give us a little bit more of that confidence to say that it's still above average, but again, nowhere near as busy as what we saw last year. So with today's update, calling for 16 named storms, and again, 3 of them already happening. So technically 13 more named storms, 8 hurricanes, 3 major hurricanes. And with that, they also tweaked their numbers about the likelihood of landfall as well. They're looking at a 48% chance of at least 1 major hurricane hitting the U.S. coastline, 25% being on the East Coast, including Florida, 31% calling for the Gulf Coast, which is Texas all the way through Alabama. So that's something that we're going to also be focusing in on. But overall, for the next 7 days, it is going to be toasty out there, and we can see a lot of that rain continuing to fall. But again, here's just a quick look at what we saw so far in the season. Andrea, Barry, and Chantal. Next one is Dexter, but it is hot and humid for the rest of the work week and going to continue to be on the stormy side through next week as well.
Well, I tell you what, Laurel, if they're going to revise that forecast at this point, at least it is bringing those numbers and those projections down a little bit.
Just a little bit, but hey, down is the right way to go on this one.
That is a good point. And over the next 7 days, we will, it looks like, be prepared for more storms.
More storms, so make sure you have the rain gear on standby.
All right, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Laurel Blanchard, we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Garrett.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. A memorial to enslaved workers has been quietly unveiled on the grounds of the Florida State Capitol in Tallahassee. The sculpture is called Circle of Chains. It was done by an artist named Stephen White, and it shows men, women, and children held in chains. And this is located near the old historic Capitol in what is now a memorial garden in Tallahassee. Was installed in April. There's going to be an official dedication ceremony coming up in October. And this afternoon on Florida Live, I talked with James Call. He's the Capitol reporter for the Tallahassee Democrat and for USA Today. He recently wrote a piece on this memorial and was able to talk about what it shows and the feeling that it evokes in that memorial garden on the state capitol grounds.
This goes back about 7 years ago. The Florida legislature appropriated $400,000 to to memorialize the people who were enslaved and help build the foundation of Florida's economy. The measure was sponsored by then Representative Keon McGee, who's now Miami-Dade Commissioner, and Senator Darrell Rousseau of St. Petersburg. It took 7 years to get this statue built, this sculpture built, and it is quite striking. It's right across the street from the state capitol in Memorial Park. That lead image is called the Auction Soul. It's a young woman, barely dressed. She's shackled at the ankles, at the wrists, around the neck, and she's staring at the Union Bank building, which is the oldest standing bank building in the state of Florida. There are farm workers next to her, but the gentleman whose back is facing us in this photo is the one that really struck me. These are life-size statues, and that gentleman, you can see he has broken the chains that bound his wrists. At the same time, he is holding on to the chain that connects him to the others. And this is Stephen White's way of, if I could speak for the artist, for the sculpture, of breathing a message of hope into a piece that captures the brutal reality of slavery.
It is certainly a powerful tribute, I think, in a lot of ways. You talked a little bit about kind of how this came about. This was installed in April, correct?
Correct, April 28th, very quietly. It was unannounced, and I still can't get a comment from the Department of Management Services about what is going on. But Senator Rousseau is going to conduct some sort of official ribbon cutting and blessing for the sculpture when lawmakers return to Tallahassee in October, the first week of October, to officially recognize it.
And as I understand it, I believe you reported that this is believed to be the only one of its kind on a state capitol grounds.
Yes, isn't that? I find that very striking. There's a little monument, little plaque to slaves, to captured people who died on slave ships on the Tennessee state capitol grounds. But this appears to be the only memorial, the only sculpture on official state capitol grounds in the country. Now to qualify this a little bit, this is actually located across the street from the Capitol. A couple years ago, lawmakers extended the Capitol grounds across Highway 319, US 27, to take in 4 more blocks. So you can see the Capitol in the background there. This is actually across the street. And this sculpture is next to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, but across Highway 27 from what is now officially known as Memorial Park. Well, this is all Memorial Park, but there's a memorial plaza that will house 5 more memorials across Highway 27. The Holocaust Memorial is up, and it is quite striking. A memorial to the Dozier School victims, the boys who were held in captive at a reform school and brutalized, that the state has officially apologized for. That memorial is also there. So, excuse me. But what is developing is a very beautiful memorial park on the grounds of the state capitol. The state capitol at the moment is undergoing a $300 million upgrade and renovations. And the Department of Management Services is just doing a very, very nice job. You all ought to come to Tallahassee and check out how they're transforming the Capitol grounds. It is really a nice piece of landscape architecture that is occurring here in Tallahassee.
James, you talked about speaking with Senator Rousseau and his kind of role in this. What is his reaction to kind of seeing this sculpture now?
He thinks it is an excellent piece of public art. I guess I echo what he says about how it forces one into reflection. He loves it. He's very grateful that the state has done it, and he speaks. He praises it. This piece, I mean, you can walk up to it, and although this is metal, it's bronze. I mean, it is so lifelike and striking. You can see eyes. How an artist is able to take metal and bronze, and it's unpolished, but you can see the humanity in these figures. You see the scars on the gentleman's back. You see the look of exhaustion in the farm worker's face. The child, the little girl there, it's just a blank stare. To me, it's a very moving piece.
We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We're getting some new information this afternoon about the Florida Department of Education report cards giving 2 Orange County schools a grade that they don't agree with. And Fox 35's Randy Hildreth has been looking into this today and been getting some answers about it. Hey, Randy, an F is something nobody wants to see.
Yeah, you think back to your childhood growing up, the report card, if for me, if I had come home with an F, that would have been a report card that I was trying to hide from my parents. And so to have this come out, to be released to the public that these schools were rated or given an F grade by the state, it was pretty shocking. And not just because these 2 schools say that they didn't get the grade that they deserve, from their perspective, based on the demographic of students they serve, they don't believe they should have been given a grade, period. They argue that over the last few years, they have been used or given a different rating system to determine how their students are progressing. And that's not an A through F situation for them. So not only they say they don't deserve an F, they shouldn't have been graded in this way at all. That's according to UCP Downtown School and OCPS Beta School. Those are the 2 schools in question.
So what now?
Yeah, so we have 2 things going on. One, school leaders are working to appeal this grade. They are working with, so they're charter schools, so they operate under a different umbrella, but they are working with Orange County Public Schools, their accountability personnel, to file an appeal with the state to try to get this corrected so they don't have this F on their, so-called report card. I want to kind of break this into two things. So why they believe this happened and how it happened and, what they believe should have happened. So in terms of what they believe should have happened, instead of getting this A through F rating system used on these two schools, they believe that they should have, and what they said they have received in the past is not necessarily a grade, but a determination on the status of their students using a different rating system. They should have received a school improvement rating. That's not A through F. That is maintaining or increasing. Those are the ratings that are used for these types of schools. And I say these types of schools because they serve different populations of students. OCPS Beta serves teen moms, and UCP downtown, 65% of those students have a disability. And so they are working under different circumstances. And so that goes back to the point. They believe they should not have gotten an F. They should have gotten a rating based on different standards. And when I talk to UCP leaders for that downtown school, they say if they had been rated appropriately using the correct grading scale, they would have gotten a maintaining grade, which is good. And that is looking at different ways to measure the growth of their students. And they say, actually, since 2022, if you look at their numbers based on this scale, the students have shown gains. Some of their most high need students have shown progress over the last few years. So very frustrated that they got this F, which they say they don't deserve, and they say they shouldn't have even been graded that way.
And these are, as I understand it, both alternative schools with, high needs populations anyway.
Yes. So OCPS Beta, that's a school that serves teen moms, and then UCP downtown, 65% of those students have a disability, and some have significant disabilities. So that's why they say they don't use this A through F rating when they have had conversations with the state in the past. They never use this A through F rating, at least since 2018. They should have used a different rating to measure how their students are growing. It should have been a improvement rating. And if they had used that, they said they would have been in good standing.
Any response from the state on this?
Working to get a response from the state, also working to get more information from the schools about this appeal process. That's one of the latest questions that I asked them as they were sending me information for the story. Officially, when they plan to file that appeal, I was told the principal for UCP downtown just got into town this morning, and they have spent the day working on getting this appeal together, working with Orange County Public Schools. And so once that is filed, we'll get word from them, but then also the timeline for how long it will take to get something like this corrected. So still some questions we're following with this story.
All right. Well, Fox 35's Randy Hildreth. Interesting stuff there. We appreciate you digging into that and getting some answers on it. We'll stay tuned for your story coming up on the newscast as well, and we appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. We are also learning more about this disruption, the cut fiber optic cable that led to a 911 outage across multiple counties for several hours. And Fox 35's Marie Ettinger joins me live now via Zoom. And Marie, I know you've been looking into backup plans and things that, kind of redundancies that are in place to reduce the impact of things like this. What have you been able to learn?
We learned the cause of this actual outage. I talked to the company that handles the 911 dispatch, or the private company that routes those calls. They're called Lumen, and they said there was a third-party construction site or third-party construction party that cut the line on accident, severed it. And that one fiber optic cable being cut led to outages across Lake, Marion, and Citrus counties. We know that it impacted at least 1 million people in total. Fortunately, I talked with Lake County's director of operations here, and he said, for public safety, and he said that this turned out to be kind of a really good test in the end, because realistically, the people trying to call 911 had no disruption in service. If you called and you were in Marion County, then your call would have just been routed to Alachua County, or some of them went to Sumter County. If you called from Lake County, those went to Sumter County as well. So people calling still were able to get a hold of a dispatcher, and that happened automatically. That's the redundancy in place. That's how the system is supposed to work. If you can't reach your dispatch locally, it just goes to another nearby center. So in Sumter County, because they were taking on so many more calls from 3 neighboring counties, they brought in extra operators. They just called people in, had them work some overtime. This outage lasted about 8 hours. There were people making plans as this was happening to see what they were going to do if the outage lasted longer, if they were going to need to send people, for instance, from Lake County over to Sumter County to help out there. So that worked just seamlessly, and everyone was really proud of that here at the Lake County Operations Center, or Emergency Operations Center. You could also still text 911, and a lot of people did that. So all the different sheriff's offices and police agencies, they put out on their social media. We also talked yesterday about alerts going out through the county if you happen to be signed up for alerts like that. They warned people that you could still text 911, and a lot of people did. So for instance, in Lake County, they said normally they get 1 or 2 people texting a day. It's not the norm. Yesterday, during this outage, they had 64 people texting. So a lot of people flocked to that. Although of those 64, I will mention some of them were just texting saying, hey, I'm testing to see if this works. But still, a lot of people made use of that system when they hadn't before. Overall, things got handled. Lumen says it's looking into kind of bolstering its own systems to make sure that a single cut in a one fiber optic line doesn't cause a problem like this again. And everything's back to normal now.
Yeah, Marie, I think that's the big question. How does one cable like this, how is that able to impact so many counties?
That's the question I wasn't able to answer today. So I know that that cut happened in the city of Leesburg. I know that Leesburg actually has its own separate emergency operations center. They don't use the same system as the county, but they obviously all are able to call on each other for police, fire, or medical, whatever is needed. How one line is responsible for so much and for such a massive impact, that's a question I'm still asking, and I hope to get to the bottom of that. But we do know, again, Lumen says that it's going to be trying to create its own redundancies in its system, so we'll have to see what they wind up doing, and that could answer some questions about why this one line was responsible for so much.
All right, Fox 35's Marie Ettinger. We appreciate you joining us and breaking that down for us this afternoon here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Of course.
We are also continuing to follow controversies across the state when it comes to these 287G agreements. Those are the agreements between localities, whether it's counties, whether it's cities, whether it's police departments, sheriff's offices, with ICE for immigration enforcement. And it was interesting because last night, in Key West, the city commission voted 4-2 to approve a 287G agreement. And this came just days after they had previously voided the agreement that they had in place before that. But that precipitated a threat from the Attorney General James Uthmeyer and led to an hours-long meeting last night. So this afternoon, I spoke with Mitch Perry, who's a reporter from the Florida Phoenix, to break down the situation and how it fits into the broader context of these conversations about these ICE agreements across the state.
Yeah, this goes back to, well, let's go back to just last week, last Monday, June 30th. Frankly, the folks in Key West weren't really aware that their police chief had signed an agreement, a 287G agreement with ICE back in March, actually. For whatever reason, it wasn't really well publicized. And so when folks learned about that in Key West in late June, they were very unhappy about it. They held this meeting just a little over a week ago, and they said, we didn't know anything about this. This is not approved by us, and we're going to void that agreement. Well, the very next day, Attorney General James Uthmeyer put out a scathing letter and basically said, look, you're doing that. You're now officially a sanctuary city, which is banned in Florida. You better change what you're doing there. And the next day, I think it was last Wednesday, the mayor of Key West then said, we're going to have an emergency meeting next week, which was actually last night, to look back and see, we're going to have another vote on this. And that's what happened last night. It was over 3 hours of intense debate. Almost every person there, and there were over 100 in attendance. I'm not sure how many actually spoke, dozens spoke. Only 2 people were for this, keeping this going for this agreement. Everybody else said, don't do it, don't do it. But they went ahead 4-2 to vote to go ahead and do that. They are now another local law enforcement agency that has signed an agreement with ICE regarding immigration enforcement.
You talked about the hours of public comment. It looked like it was a packed house at that meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And people were very passionate about not doing this. And in fact, there's some legal gray area here in terms of, frankly, there was a law passed earlier this year by the legislature that does say essentially that counties with jail facilities have to have an agreement with ICE. So all 67 counties in this state do have that. That's not the same thing with the local municipalities and police departments. So some people were advocating, look, don't do anything. Some people were saying, of course, don't do this agreement, stay where you are right now. But others were even arguing, just postpone this. There is another legal situation going on in South Miami where they are challenging having municipalities have to agree on a 287G agreement, and that is still working its way through the courts. So yeah, the commissioners heard very much passionate arguments about this. They said, we're Key West, we're different here, we don't do this, these are our neighbors, we don't need to be going out and going after these folks. But the threat of losing their jobs for the city commission was, I guess, too much to bear, because ultimately they did decide to go back over the vote that they did last week. Last week they voted 6-1 to avoid that agreement. Last night they voted 4-2 to have another go at it, as it were.
I'm glad you brought up that point, Mitch, about it being kind of a gray area right now, and obviously with that ongoing fight from the city of South Miami that's challenging this. But we have seen the state leaders, the Attorney General, not hesitate to make these threats against, not just, this isn't the first case of this that we have seen. We've seen it with cities, a number of them across the state that have kind of felt this pressure to go ahead and sign these agreements, even though there are still questions about whether it needs to be done.
Well, even in Orlando there, Mayor Buddy Dyer made some remarks at one point, and James Uthmeyer wrote a letter to him the next day, and Mayor Dyer said, well, look, we've already signed an agreement with 287G, so, back off with us. But yeah, Fort Myers has happened earlier, and several city commissioners at the Fort Myers area were questioning whether they should do this. They backed away when Uthmeyer sent a threatening letter. And look, the DeSantis administration has shown over its course of its time in office that they will throw people out of office, right? We saw that with Monique Worrell in the Orange Osceola County jurisdiction. Andrew Warren, state attorney in Hillsborough County, he was suspended, lost his job when the DeSantis administration said that he wasn't playing by the rules. So these threats are taken very seriously. That's why you saw last night in Key West, dozens of folks wearing Be Brave t-shirts. They knew that this was going to be a challenging vote for the city commission, because when you have the state, when you have Ron DeSantis, when you have James F. Meyer threatening basically your jobs, that puts, that's very serious. But the folks in the audience were saying, look, be brave, be courageous. What are you here? What are you elected for? What do you believe in? And so, that was the tenor of the evening. It was very intense. But again, at the end of the day, I think I wasn't really surprised. I mean, obviously, once that letter went out by Huffmeyer last week, we really haven't seen, when it comes to these 287G agreements, too much defiance, with the exception, as you mentioned, of South Miami.
Give you a live look right now. Rain coming down pretty hard in downtown Orlando just a minute ago, less than a minute ago. You couldn't even see the Kia Center from that shot on the left there. Traffic moving a little slow northbound, or eastbound rather, on I-4 there as well. So be careful if you're out on the roads. You're going to be heading out in the next little bit, because we are seeing some storms pop up on the radar, dealing with some heavy rain at times as well with that. So that's something to be aware of. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. Bit of a rainy Wednesday afternoon in some places. I'll give you another look right now. Downtown Orlando, you can see the rain is still coming down. We are not dealing with anything too bad right now here in Lake Mary. Let me give you a look from our tower here. It is definitely not quite like it has been in the last little bit as well. So just something to keep in mind and again, be aware of. Well, this case dismissed against a Brevard County man, Jeff Abramowski, who, as we talked about earlier, released in April after 2 decades behind bars. He was previously convicted back in 2006 of the murder of 78-year-old Courtney Crandall and was sentenced to life in prison. But that was before he was essentially, according to his attorneys, exonerated after a judge overturned the conviction, vacated the sentence, and then prosecutors saying they are not going to pursue further charges because of this new DNA evidence that indicates others were at the crime scene. We heard today from Kevin McCann, the attorney representing Jeff Abramowski, and Abramowski himself, who spoke about this kind of what he's been dealing with over these past years, months, and what he's feeling now that he is a free man.
Good afternoon. I am Kevin McCann, the attorney that represented Jeffrey Abramowski in his fight for justice. I've been representing Mr. Abramowski for 6 years now. We met in 2019, and at that time, we both had some hope, but to actually think that we'd make it to this day was not something we really highly expected. So we're thrilled. I have a quick statement I'd like to read, and then we can open this up to questions. This has been a tremendous week of justice for Mr. Abramowski and his family. They have worked tirelessly for well over 2 decades to prove his innocence, and words cannot truly describe the emotions that we are all currently feeling. Mr. Abramowski and I would like to thank and commend the State's Attorney's Office under the leadership of former State Attorney Phil Archer and current State Attorney Will Shiner, as well as the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, the Brevard County Clerk of Court's Office, and the Brevard County Judiciary in our pursuit for justice. The integrity, competency, and hard work of these entities is a testament to the professionalism of the law enforcement and legal communities in Brevard County. We would also like to thank our team of experts at the Innocence Project of Florida, who provided invaluable guidance, support, and resources in our pursuit to discredit the DNA evidence in the original state's case, as well as come up with new exculpatory evidence supporting Mr. Abramowski's innocence. Although we are ecstatic and relieved that Mr. Abramowski has finally achieved his long-awaited justice, we are still brokenhearted, and we hope that the victim, Mr. Crandall, and his family will eventually achieve their justice as well.
Is there any fear or worry that the state could still bring these charges back at all?
That's a great question, and there is no worry whatsoever that the state can bring these charges back. We did have the state dismiss the case with prejudice, so they cannot recharge him for these crimes. And should they even do, we believe that our case is so strong on innocence that it wouldn't go anywhere.
And then, Mr. Abramowski, I mean, for what you've been through, what you've gone through, many people might feel angry or bitter for the time that was stolen from them. How are you feeling?
Well, that rightly so, a person's gonna be, a lot of pent-up frustration and stress and all that, and it leads to, bitterness and anger towards the people that have done this. But you have to understand with this, though, there was a different administration. The administration that's in there now actually took the time to do the right thing and investigate, and that's why we're standing here today. So, and also my attorney, Kevin McCann, said, let it go. He says, because you're not truly a free man if you're out there with all that pent up in your heart. So I'm learning to, just do the right thing and just move on. I got a great family and I love them, and I'm not going to let this consume me.
Can you compare your emotions from when you first walked out of the jail with the possibility of this hanging over your head to now where it's over?
Well, I was telling Kevin and Jamie and, and the guys from Florida today, I says, when I first realized, that it was over finally, I was getting out of the shower yesterday, and I looked and I says, wow, it came into my mind, it's like, I actually have freedom of choice again. And, people don't realize the little things that you do and don't do and decide whatever you're going to do for a day. It's so important to you that when that's taken away from you, you don't know what you're really able to do in the free world until you don't have it no more, and you walk the line, like they say in prison. Yeah, it's horrifying. It's very stressful, and it's painful.
Mr. Abramowski, I want to ask you, because obviously the state said they didn't have enough to move forward to have reasonable doubt in this case, but you have always said that you were innocent of this crime. They haven't used that word innocent or exonerated. Do you feel exonerated at this point? How important is it to you, after being 23 years in custody, that people hear what you have to say about not committing this crime?
Well, it's like go back to the interrogation tapes and everything. They were saying this of mine was there and that was there. And I looked right at him. I told him, I says, it isn't there. I says, because I wasn't there. And, I always knew from day one that all this was smoke and mirrors. That's what they did with this. And, you know, Kevin's going to be able to answer that better than me because he, you know, really delved into it and he knows what was there and wasn't there. But, you know, if you really go and read the transcripts and stuff and take the time to understand what they're really saying on the stand, you know, like the DNA expert for the state of Florida, you'll see it was just all smoke and mirrors. And that's, you know, I just needed somebody like Kevin McCann to come in there and you know, like it was said about me, hold your feet to the fire. And you see where we're at today.
I'd like to elaborate a little bit on the question about exoneration. At this point, with the dismissal of the charges, Mr. Abramowski is fully exonerated, as if he was never charged, and he was put back into a place where he was in 2002, prior to being a suspect. And he currently is a free man. He's not a felon. He's not convicted. He's got his right to vote back. He's got his right to carry arms back. He is fully exonerated. So I just want to make that clear.
Hey, Jeff, I interviewed you twice in prison, and both times you had this look on your face like, I got to get out of here, because this is just such a bad place. I can't imagine what it's like if you're guilty to be in prison. What is it like if you're not guilty? I mean, what would some of those like really dark, you know, painful days like for you?
Well, one day when I was transferred to Martin CI 11 years ago, and I was sitting in the cell, and it's full of mold and the black mold and the chip paint, and it's just dirty in there, right? And I looked at all that environment and I said, oh my God, this could be the rest of my life. And you wouldn't believe the devastation and just it's like the cloud over the top of you, you know, the dark cloud over the top of you. It's hard, but you got to keep moving forward. You know, you just got to let those feelings subside when they do, and just keep moving forward. And that's what I did all those years. I never fell victim to, you know, creating my own monsters. You know, and it's you just got to keep moving forward. But the answer to that question really is it's a dangerous world in there. You know, there's a lot of stories I could tell, and you know, one day we'll sit down. But the thing is it's real hard just for, if you watch like 60 days in, you know, you see these people in there for 2-3 days and they're sick of it. But they got a chance to go home. But when you get in there and you got no choice, you got to suck it up and do it. You got to do it. There came a time in my life where I really thought, wow, this might not work. You know, they might not let me out. But like you say, 4 months ago, the new administration that came in, you know, during the elections and everything, they sat there and I had that feeling like you say, wow, I might win, you know, and go home and prove my innocence. And it was like intoxicating. It really was. I felt good. But then again, I still had all that bitterness in me, so it's really hard to outwardly show that the joy that I had. You know, people look at me and they say, you look mad, you know, but you should be the happiest guy on the planet. I am. I'm hurt, and plus too, you know, it's hard to really trust what you go through. It's hard to trust them.
A lot of emotions, I'm sure, to be going through after all of that. Well, we appreciate you joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus. We are still with you because of some post-game soccer coverage going on still right now on Fox 35. So we'll be with you until Fox 35 News at 5 begins in a few minutes. We're going to step aside, take a quick break here on Fox Local, but we'll be right back with more after that. So keep it right here. We'll be right back in a couple of minutes. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. A live look right there in downtown Orlando as the rain continues to fall. Also give you a look at the Fox 35 storm tracker radar. You can see a severe thunderstorm warning that has been issued for part of the area as well. It looks like eastern Seminole County there. So we'll have a full forecast and the latest update coming up from Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Noah Berggren in just a couple of minutes when Fox 35 News at 5 begins. Still have a couple more minutes with you as soccer coverage continues, though, on Fox 35 right now. So we want to transition to a little bit of sports coverage as we had the chance to hear from UCF head football coach Scott Frost, who answered questions from reporters yesterday at Big 12 Media Day in Texas. We know the Knights still searching for their first winning season in the Big 12, so how are they going to do that? Scott Frost speaking with reporters at Big 12 Media Day.
I think before I get started, I just want to take a minute and kind of reflect on the things that have happened in Texas over the last week. You know, coming down here and reading about it and seeing it. It's a good reminder to me of how much we love football and how important it is, but there's bigger things in life, and thoughts and prayers are certainly with people around here. I'm excited to be here. First want to thank my AD, Terry Mahajer, President Cartwright at UCF for giving me a chance to come back to a place that I love. Ashley and I were both really excited to get back to Orlando because of the way the fans and the UCF family treated us the first time, and it's been the same since we've been back. So I'm excited to do the best I can to help put a good product on the field for the fans and UCF family. Excited to be in the Big 12. I think the things the Big 12 has done have positioned itself uniquely. I think there's some really smart moves being made. Got a lot of admiration for Commissioner Yormark and what the Big 12 has become. I think it's a really fair, balanced league, and anybody can win if you do things right. So we're working hard to push ourselves in that direction. Want to just take one more minute I see Paul out there to just give a shout out to the 4 young men that are here with me today: Paul Rubelt, Nigel Kelly, Kelly Lawson, and Miles Montgomery. They're unbelievable representatives of our football team and our university, and proud to have them with me. So happy to be here.
And if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Matt Michelle of the Orlando Sentinel. Scott, I wanted to ask, you mentioned Paul. What has he meant to the program? Obviously, you brought him here from media days, but from the moment he first arrived on campus to now, what have you seen from him, especially this year coming back to that?
Well, I see him right now. He's about as tall sitting down as you are standing up. He's almost like an ambassador for UCF. You know,
Scott Frost speaking yesterday at Big 12 Media Days in Texas ahead of the start of the upcoming football season there. A lot of anticipation for his upcoming season and the work that they have done. Well, that's going to do it for us here on Fox 35 News Plus. We know Fox 35 News at 5 is going to start in less than a minute here, in about 30 seconds actually, here on Fox Local. So just keep it here for more news and the latest forecast, as well as the rain continues to fall. Got that severe thunderstorm warning as well. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.